Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Patton, one of the guidance counselors, and thank you so much for joining this virtual gap year panel. I was hoping we could have this in person, but I am so happy to be able to offer this opportunity virtually for you all. So we have three different representatives here. We have Stephanie Kozlowski from Dyname Internship Year. We have Kristen Hill from City Year, and we have Hillary LeBlanc from Where There Be Dragons. Unfortunately, the CIE rep was unable to attend, but you can certainly learn a little bit more about that program by visiting the website. I will send out the recording of this panel as well as just some resources for how to research gap year programs. So you can definitely take a look at that there. So before we get started with our panel, I first off just want to explain a little bit about what a gap year is. Some of you may be very familiar with this term, others it may be something you heard about, but you don't quite understand what that means. So essentially, taking a gap year typically means taking some time after high school. It can be, a semester, a year, to kind of press pause and really think about what it is that is important to you. And usually there is some kind of experiential learning that goes along with it. And so these different representatives here will be talking about three different types of gap year programs that are available. But essentially, we find that there are some students who, maybe they know that they do want to continue on to college, but they feel like they just need to take some time off to really figure out what's important to them. And I think that at a school like Medfield, a large number of our students do choose to go right on to 2- and 4-year colleges after high school. And that is a great fit for a lot of students, but it's not for everyone. So I think it's important to know that not 100% of our students each year go right on to 2- and 4-year colleges. We do have students who go on to gap year programs, or maybe they take some time off to do a training program, or they decide to work or do an internship. So there's lots of different pathways for after high school, and we just want to make sure that all students and families know that going right on to college is not the only option. So hopefully after this program, you'll feel like there are a lot of different exciting opportunities out there that might be a good fit for you. So to go ahead and get started, I'd love to hear from each one of our reps. If you could give an overview, just a general overview of what your program's all about and kind of what is unique to your program. Maybe Steph, can we hear from Dyname first?
Sure.
Great.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Kozlowski. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at Dyname Internship Year. And to just kind of talk about Dyname really quickly, Dyname is a domestic gap option. We are right in Worcester, Massachusetts, so kind of your own backyard. And we take students, age ranges 17 to 22. And really what sets Dyname aside of being a domestic gap year program, is that we focus very heavily on career exploration and experiential learning through hands-on internships, and then independent living, executive functioning skills, and life skills. Dyname, in a nutshell, I would say, is really designed to help students figure out what they want to do after Dyname, and then make sure that they're the most prepared for it. Students may feel like they're ready for college, but they're not ready to take on the workload, or they want to work on some of those other finer skills that they're going to need in order to be successful in college, like time management, organizational skills, executive functioning skills. Or maybe they're ready for college. They have absolutely no idea what it is that they want to study. Dyname kind of exists because we don't expect 17 and 18-year-olds to have it all figured out and know exactly what they want to do next and what they want to study when they get to college. So they have the opportunity to try up to 3 very different internships. We're in Worcester, so you guys know it's a small city with a lot of different opportunities. We partner with a little over 100 different companies right now to offer different internships, everything from animal care, education, web design, government, social justice, media, marketing, just to kind of name a few. And then in it, to really help students kind of solidify, or get that day-to-day hands-on experience in a career to kind of solidify what it is that they want to study in college. Overall, Dyname students identify as college bound, but for whatever reason may not be college ready. We see a lot of students with, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, students and that not every student has a diagnosis, but those are common if a student does. A lot of our students benefit from our hands-on, experiential learning, because maybe the traditional classroom has not been the ideal learning environment for them. So Dyname tends to work really well for those students. In addition to that, our other focus is independent living. Students live in Dyname apartments, all within about a block to a block and a half of each other, chipping away at those independent living skills that again will help them be a little bit more successful in college when they're kind of learning to live on their own and manage their schedule and manage their time and budget and finance and manage money and things like that. So just to kind of wrap it up real quick, we do mimic a college academic calendar, traditional fall semester, traditional spring semester. We have a rolling admissions process, so there's no deadline per se. Students do need to have completed high school in order to attend Dyname, so students are eligible to apply their senior year of high school. And then I'm sure you guys will have questions after this and we can answer them then. But that's kind of Dyname real quick.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Kristen, do you want to talk a little bit about City Year?
Sure thing. So hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Hill, recruiter at City Year. Before I became a recruiter at City Year, I actually served with the organization. So what brought me to City Year and what is City Year all about? So going into college, I definitely had a less than ideal high school experience. I was sick. I missed a lot of school. I had mental health challenges. So I just had a lot going on, and I definitely felt really anxious about going to college. Ultimately, I didn't end up going to college right after graduation, but I definitely wish, looking back, that I had slowed down to take some more time to really figure out who the heck I was and what I really wanted to do. Because honestly, I chose my major based off of my favorite TV shows. So I liked CSI, Criminal Minds, and I was like, great, I'm going to be a criminal justice major and I'm going to be a homicide detective. Boom. But definitely plans changed. I got to school. It was definitely hard, finding my footing at first. And especially the academic pressure was a lot. So, going into college right out of high school, it's a big step up, right? Like I said, I was able to do that, make that transition, and ended up really loving what I studied, and ultimately really grew a strong passion for social justice and community work. So really, how can I better the lives of others? That's what I wanted to do. And so senior year of college, as I tried to figure out what came next, that's when I discovered City Year. So City Year, we are an education nonprofit that works in public schools across the country. Right now, the closest sites to Medfield are going to be our Boston location, Manchester, New Hampshire, where I serve, which in my opinion is one of the best sites, Providence, Rhode Island. Those are some of our closest sites to Medfield. But again, we're in 29 different cities. So what I think is unique about serving with City Year, especially right out of high school, is you have this awesome opportunity to either serve a community that is close to home or allow yourself to still go on that big adventure, right? Oftentimes the excitement of going to college is the fact that you get to go away from home for the first time. And so you are able to still do that with City Year if you choose to take a gap year with us. So you have that opportunity to go and live in a new city. I think what is unique about our program is whether you're serving close to home or in a new city is the support that you have. So while working with City Year, your job is to work in schools supporting students. So if you're a recent high school graduate, you'll be typically working with us in either an elementary school or middle school. And you'll be serving students as a tutor, mentor, and role model. So thinking about your own experience in school right now, I'm sure you can think back to times when maybe you had stuff going on at home with your family, or maybe you were struggling with something personally or dealing with something with your friends, and thinking about the pressure of school and really not feeling like you could give 100% to your schoolwork, right? We've all been there. And as that city year member, you are now there to support your students through those types of challenges, saying like, hey, I know life can be tough, so let's work through some of that stuff so then we can focus on school. So that's really the beauty of City Year, is you're there directly supporting students as both a mentor to them and as a tutor. So you're able to give them this really holistic support that maybe you wanted when you were in school. I know for me, high school was so challenging because, my teachers, God bless them, they had so many students on their plate, but I had so much going on. Like if I had one teacher slow down and say like, hey, you seem really stressed out, overwhelmed, like that could have made a huge difference for me. But instead, I really felt like at points like I was drowning and I couldn't handle like personal stuff and school stuff all at once. And so as a city year member, like I said, you're there to support them. Have no fear though. When I did city year, I was like, okay, so I was not an education major. I've babysat, I've worked at the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. So I had experience working with youth or with children, but I definitely didn't have any formal education experience. And so with city year, when you come to work with us, we provide you a ton of training. And I think especially coming out of high school, the training that we provide you with, yes, will help you figure out how do I coach a student through a difficult math problem? Or if a student comes to me with something they're struggling with, how do I make them feel better, but also make sure we get them the help that they need? So yes, we'll give you trainings on that, but we're also going to provide you with professional and leadership training. And I think this is something that is going to be particularly helpful for high school graduates. So although I served with City Year right out of college, I actually had a handful of folks that were right out of high school that I served with. And what I think was really cool about their experience is, I did a lot of growing up in my 4 years of college, but I think I did more growing up in that year with City Year than I did in those 4 years. And so, what these high school grads who came out of high school, came right into City Year, they were able to very quickly, pick up real life skills that they could now bring with them to school. And so when I checked back in with some of our high school grads that I served with, they were like, I feel like I'm way ahead of the game. So once they finished City Year and went on to college, they felt like they were set up for success. They had an ability to, as Stephanie says, really work on some of those softer skills like managing your time, organization, right? How to advocate for yourself, how to have conversations with your teachers to say, hey, XYZ is going on, right? And having the confidence to do that. And so I think, with these gap year programs, whether it's City Year or another program, it's really all about gaining confidence in yourself, working on those softer skills to really make sure you feel prepared for what's next. Last thing I'll say about City Year is that, especially as a high school grad, we as an organization, we accept high school grads, but also college grads, as well as folks who are in the middle of college. And so what is cool is you'll be able to work alongside so many other young people who have some gone to college. You can talk to them. What did you major in? What did you like about that? What school did you go to? What did you like or not like about that? So you almost have built-in mentors in your peers. And I know that for me, like I love talking to the high school grads, like you should check this out, you should check this out. So you just get these extra tips, like things that I wish I knew before I went to college. So it's really supportive community that you're coming into. Like I said, you have that opportunity to serve close to home and live with family if you'd like, or go out to a new city, and we would support you in finding an apartment, finding roommates to live with. So you would still also have that aspect of learning how to live on your own, pay your bills. What is a utility bill? How do we handle that? And during your service year, I would say something that is different from our program than some other gap year programs is, instead of paying for our program, we actually pay you to do our program. So City Year is more like a job, where you are working, like I said, full-time in school supporting students. But I can definitely dive a little bit deeper later on into the nitty gritty of the work, but that's kind of basic overview of City Year and some of the perks that you will get as a high school grad serving with us.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. Hillary, can you tell us a little bit about your program?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Hillary LeBlanc, and I've worked with Dragons for about 5 years. Currently work in the admissions office, but also have worked as an instructor. So can really speak to the student experience, to the whole process of learning about Dragons, signing up, preparing to go on a course, and then actually being in the fields. But very generally, what Dragons offers is a responsible, immersive, and educational student travel programs. The Dragons has been running courses internationally for about 30 years. Started originally in Asia, and then subsequently we've moved on to parts of Latin America and Africa. And a silver lining for us in the COVID realm has been the opportunity to launch domestic courses. So before COVID, we were only international focused, and we'd had instructors kind of put forth proposals of this would be a really cool domestic summer or gap course, but with our focus internationally, just didn't really have the time and space to make those courses a reality. And hitting pause on international travel obviously has been a huge bummer, but pretty cool for us to launch these courses domestically that have been in the works. And we're really excited to continue offering those both as summer and semester options even after COVID. So we had 2 courses in the field, both this fall and spring. Those will also be summer options, but we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel where we have a few international courses that are likely to go out this summer. And I can go over which regions those courses are. A lot of them obviously are still canceled for the summer, but we're kind of like starting to pick up momentum with our return to international travel. So in terms of our gap options, we do 3-month semester courses for students between the ages of 17 to 22. September and February starts for those. And you can also receive college credit on a handful of our gap semester courses. So I can go more into what that looks like, how to receive college credit for those gap semesters. And then for students down the road, when you're in college, we also run college study abroad courses. So you can study abroad with Dragons while in college if you opt to not take a gap semester. And then in terms of goals for our students, they're quite similar to goals already mentioned, but I also kind of like for Dragons to kind of break them down and define them as being place-focused and self-focused. So in terms of place-focused goals, we run programs that aim to honestly immerse students in the areas in which we're traveling. And we really want students to learn as much about the place that they're in a really real and honest way. And also hope through that, they're also able to develop meaningful relationships with homestay families or other folks they're meeting along the way. And then in terms of self-focused goals, we know travel is a really powerful teacher. And so we want to use travel experiences to really push students to learn more about themselves, their values, their perspectives, kind of work on those kind of leadership skills. And the takeaway, similar to what was already mentioned, self-awareness, confidence. We don't expect students to come away knowing like, this is who I am and this is what I want to do, but it's kind of some trajectory kind of in that direction. And I think that for students who do go to college after a Dragons course, kind of hit the ground running, knowing a bit more about what they want to do, kind of clubs they want to participate in. And I know for me personally, it took me to like my junior year to kind of find my niche. But talking to alumni from Dragons, like from the get-go, they were able to kind of figure out, okay, who are my people? What is it academically that I want to focus on outside of academics? Like what are clubs and sports or other activities I might want to be involved in? But like Amanda mentioned, some Dragon students don't go right to college or they don't go afterwards. So regardless if it's school after a course or it's work, students definitely say they find like greater satisfaction in their work and school and all of that. So whatever it is you want to do after a Dragons course or any sort of gap year experience, I think it really sets you up for some of that like personal and professional development as well. So we're definitely getting a lot of questions around what does COVID look like for our programs over the coming months, and we can have those more specific conversations. But for the summer, what is going out into the field at this point is our Guatemala course, Nepal, Bolivia, Peru, and then 2 domestic programs as well. So I think that gives a sense of, for the fall, regions will be able to operate in, plus hopefully a handful more as international continues to open. But yeah, it's very generally student travel. A lot of the same goals, I think, are across the board for all gap year programs, but that is kind of a little bit about Dragons.
Wonderful, thank you. So I forgot to mention at the beginning, for those participants here listening in, if you have a question at any point, you can feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be monitoring those questions, and we can ask them either at the end or kind of throughout the presentation as they're relevant. So don't hesitate to ask any specific questions you might have at any point. The next question I'd love for each of the panelists to answer is, if you can talk just a little bit about the application process. What deadlines should students and families be aware of? What is involved in the application? What kind of student are you looking for? Any guidance along those lines would be helpful. Steph, do you want to start with Dyname?
Sure. I kind of briefly touched on it, but I can definitely kind of dig in a little bit deeper. So again, Dyname has a rolling admissions process. We don't have a deadline. Our enrollment is almost the opposite of college. Students tend to focus on college like in the fall up until kind of like the first of the year. Our enrollment season is really, like March, April, May. So like right now we're in the heat, like the height of enrolling this incoming fall class. But students are eligible to apply as soon as they begin their senior year. We start enrolling about a year out. And it's a pretty easy, straightforward online application right on our website, dyname.org. There takes students maybe about a half an hour to complete. There are some supporting documents that we ask for. We do ask for students' transcripts. They do not need to be official. They do not need to be complete. Obviously, if you're applying in your senior year, they're not going to be complete. We understand that. We're not looking at them the same way a college would. We're just using them as a tool, and basically to make sure that you're on track to graduate. There are 2 recommendation forms. It's a very quick online form. We ask folks that have worked with you in either an educational or a community capacity to recommend you for the program. It's a quick online form, kind of short answer, fill in the bubble. And then there's also a parent questionnaire. And then once all of those pieces come in, we do student and parent interviews just to get to know you guys a little bit more, learn a little bit more about your background, what your gap year goals are, and kind of determine that, if we're the right fit or next good step for you. And that's really the application process in a nutshell. And it kind of moves, because it's rolling admissions, the process moves as fast as the applicants do. I've seen students turn it around and complete the entire process in a day or 2. And then I've seen other students kind of drag it on for months. It's up to you guys, how fast you want to move. And I apologize, Amanda, there was a part B to that question.
Just in terms of, no, I think you answered it all. It's just deadlines, the application process, what to expect.
Okay. Yep. That's what to expect.
Wonderful. And I think, Kristen, I know you answered this about City Year. Is there financial aid offered for Dyname applicants?
Yep. We offer need-based financial aid. We use something, we don't use the FAFSA, obviously, because we're not a traditional educational institution, but we use something through NAIS. It's the National Association of Independent Schools. Gap years kind of fall into that that category. And it's similar to the FAFSA. you kind of enter your information and it comes up with an estimated family contribution, just same as the FAFSA would. And then we make that determination based on that. But yes, there is need-based aid.
Wonderful, thank you. Hillary, can you talk a little bit about Where There Be Dragons?
Yeah, so our application process sounds quite similar, also rolling and kind of up to the student, like how quickly they move through the process. COVID kind of short term has changed kind of the timeline of when courses normally fill. So very generally courses start to fill around Thanksgiving and will start to fill around Thanksgiving kind of by March. April start to fill. That's been pushed back, and that we're seeing a lot of movement with like students applying and then dropping and a space opening or waiting until they feel really confident that they are comfortable traveling until they put down a deposit and apply. So it's a little bit funny right now, but generally it's like starting to fill by Thanksgiving, or sorry, students start to apply by Thanksgiving, courses start to fill by March. And the process is an online application, again, should take students around 30 minutes or so. And we know that students are also often in the space of applying for college. So we say specifically, like, don't worry, this is not a college application. It's kind of just to get to know you a bit better and kind of learn more about you. So in addition to the online application, there is an $850 deposit that students put down to confirm their spot. And then once we have both those pieces, we also do a pre-course phone call or interview with each student, again, just to learn more about themselves, kind of hear about their goals and make sure, it really timing is right and it's a good fit at this point. We also do offer financial aid on a need basis. So there are a few additional documents that students submit in addition when applying for aid, but all that info is outlined pretty clearly on our website. And I can also chat with anyone who is interested around the process of applying for aid. And then in terms of a typical Dragon student, we get that question a lot. And I think students do a bit of research and like, well, do I need prerequisites in terms of like language or travel experience or what have you? And really courses are designed for students to be successful coming in on like any level of experience for any of the course components. We're really just wanting students who are excited about the type of travel that Dragons does. So if you're stoked to be challenged and push yourself and be part of this immersive group experience and also immersive in the place you're going, it's generally a good fit.
Great, thanks. And Kristen, can you talk a little bit about City Year's process?
Yeah, so with City Year, we do have application deadlines. As a high school student, you would typically apply during your senior year. And what I think is cool is that we have application deadlines throughout your entire senior year. So starting as early as October, you can apply to us, and as late as May. After May, we do go into like rolling admission, similar to these other programs, where we will continue to accept applications as we try to fill some of our last slots. As far as application deadlines that are remaining for this year, we actually have one next Friday, April 16th, and then, like I said, another in mid-May. With our application deadlines, I would say the first thing that you'd want to do with City Year is try to get connected with a recruiter, which for you all would be me. So connecting with Amanda, I don't know if you guys call her Miss Patton or, but connecting with maybe a guidance counselor or something like that so that we can get connected. I think something that is pretty unique about our program is that I like to be as hands-on as possible when it comes to supporting you with your application. Because I recognized for me when I was filling out my college applications, like I was a first-gen college student, so that was a time, and I really wish I had someone to kind of help me walk through each step. So your recruiter will support you in navigating the application, as well as helping you make some crucial decisions, like, do you want to serve close to home, or do you want to go to a different location? Each one of our sites, although you're doing the same service, each site is unique. So for me personally, I served up in New Hampshire, which is a really small location, which I loved because I had more of that family-like community. Whereas like Boston, there's over 200 City Year members, so it's a little bit of a different experience. As far as the application itself goes, it is all online. It usually takes students about an hour or so to complete, but I say that with like an asterisk because I'm a student. When I was filling out my City Year application, I read a sentence 20 different times before I was like, okay, that's good. So I'd say the bulk of our application is going to be gathering some background information, like, your high school education. We ask that you upload a resume if you have one, and if you don't have a resume, you can list out some of your past experiences, work experiences, that kind of thing. The main crux is going to be our short answer section, and I would say that can be the most difficult section for students at times. So again, connecting with a recruiter can really help in navigating, like, what is this question City Year is asking? Like, what do they really want to know? So I can kind of help you navigate, and help you figure out some examples you might want to share in your short answers. We also ask for a reference, and that reference can be a teacher, it can be a coach, it can be a work supervisor, it can be a guidance counselor. It just can't be mom or dad or a parent or a guardian or anything like that. I'm trying to think of anything else. You asked about the candidate. So as far as what we're looking for in our applicants, especially folks out of high school, we're really looking for folks who are willing to take on a challenge, because serving with City Year, it's not always easy. It's definitely difficult work, right? You're working with students who are going through both life stuff, but also school stuff. So that can be a lot at times. So you just have to be willing to step up to that challenge, and also be willing to learn. If you're not willing to learn, this is not the program for you, because that's what we're all about, both teaching you how to be the best professional, but also how to be a better person. I did a lot of personal growth during my service year that I wasn't expecting. I was able to see the world a lot bigger than my little town in Needham, Massachusetts. The world had a lot more to offer, and being able to learn about the world through my service year was amazing. So I would definitely look for people who are willing to, take on a challenge and really willing to learn and grow.
Great, thank you. One question that we get a lot from students and parents who are looking into gap year programs is if there's a way for them to connect with other students and parents who have kind of experienced that program. Is that something that all of your programs offer to interested students and families? Feel free, anyone can jump in.
Yeah, so we have, anytime a student or a interested student or family wants to connect with other Dyname alum or parents of alum from the past few years, we have a referral list of different parents and students that have gone through the program that we can absolutely share with you. We actually have a family from Medfield High that loves to talk to prospective students. This student graduated 2 years ago, and they love to share their experience. So yes, if that's something you're interested, I would just say reach out, shoot me an email, and we can share that info with you.
Yeah, same for Dragons. And we have 2 lists broken down. Like there's a list of all the summer courses and all the semester courses, and it kind of breaks it down by Peru or Indonesia. And so if you're interested in a specific region, specifically, you can know what students have participated in that. And I actually email them out a lot and have them both as PDFs saved as my desktop, because students frequently want to talk to past students, and I send them out a lot. So certainly if you want either the summer or semester reference list or both, I'm happy to email those out.
Same with City Year. Typically, it will start with me sitting down with the student and the parent. So it's very common, especially with my high school applicants, to have a session with both the student and the parent to make sure everyone's feeling good. And then, of course, I'm happy to connect you with a high school grad from your school. If we've had if we had a student from your school attend City Year, or someone else who was a high school grad that served with us. So more than happy to make those connections as well.
Great, thanks. We did have one question in the chat, and Kristen, it looks like you answered that on behalf of City Year, but the question is, do students ever do a gap semester versus a gap year and apply to attend college in January? So I can answer part of this. We've certainly had students say to us, you know what, I might want to go to college right away, or I might want to do gap year. I'm not really sure. So typically what we offer in the guidance office is to still help that student apply to college as if they're attending right after high school. And then once they hear where they've been admitted, they select the school that would be their first choice. And if they decide to do a gap year program first, they can contact that college and ask to defer for either a semester or a year. Ultimately, it's going to be up to that individual college, kind of what they will allow. So it really is school specific, but that's a typical track that we see our students do who are interested in gap year programs. It sounds like for City Year, they're asking you to commit to the entire academic year, so you would not be able to go to college in the spring. But I believe for Dragons and Dyname, there are semester options available, so that if the college is willing to admit you for the spring, that would potentially be an option. It's a great question.
Yeah, and Dragons sorry.
No, go ahead.
Dragons only does semester. So some students to fill a year will do a fall semester and a spring semester with Dragons. But yeah, we have plenty of students who defer for a semester or get accepted for a February start. And so, even if it's not their own choice, ends up working out, I think, great for them normally. And they're psyched that was the route they went, but we'll do a fall semester with Dragons. But I think regardless, we tend to run more courses in the fall than the spring. I think even for students who are taking the full year, they often want to do like a more structured program in the fall. So we'll select something like Dragons for the fall portion, and then kind of travel on their own or work or kind of figure out spring a bit later in the year. So not to say the spring courses aren't amazing, but we offer more of our programs in the fall and spring. So if there's a really specific program you're interested in, get in touch sooner rather than later, because for some courses, we only run them in the fall and don't also run them in the spring because there's just fewer students applying for spring sessions.
Yeah, I think most programs will, or most gap year programs will definitely agree with everything that Amanda just said. Overall, we're always going to recommend that a student applies to college first and kind of has that plan B, and then it goes through the deferral process. You know, so most schools handle it, have like their own opinion on it, and it is school specific, but I can say I've been in this position 10 years. 10 years ago, college deferrals were not as, or gap year deferrals were not as popular, and we didn't see as many schools as, open and excited about it. But now I can't think of the last time a student was denied a gap year deferral. There's so much good data out there to support the benefits of a gap year that colleges actually get really excited, when students defer. Because they see that those students tend to come on college campuses, they're more engaged in their education, they tend to step up as, campus leaders. They also tend to graduate in 4 years, where some students, they're switching majors, they're taking a smaller course load because it's just kind of too much academically. So absolutely, we recommend, doing that. But to answer your question, Dyname really gives students that flexibility. When you apply, you let us know kind of whether you're thinking maybe just a fall or just a spring semester, or if you're considering the full year, which would be both. But we give that flexibility. I would say we have about 40 to 45 students at a time. Half will sign on for the full year, half will sign on just for the fall. And then we will hold spring placements or spring spots for those fall only students, because most of those students that do sign on just for the fall almost always end up re-enrolling. They're enjoying their experience. They've made some friends. They're living in an apartment. They've tried out an internship, but they really want to explore something else and will choose to stay. But some students, they're not ready to just jump into the deep end of the pool, and they kind of want to, dip their toes in first and commit to just a semester. And that's okay. We do have some students that will, I always like to tell students they can kind of have their cake and eat it too. They can, do something structured gap year in the fall and then go on to either college, in the spring, or we see some students that'll go on to more of a traditional travel program abroad in the spring. But yes, is the answer to your question.
I'll just add for City Year. So we cannot be as flexible just because of the commitment that we make to the students that we work with. So if you think about your own life, again, if you've ever had a teacher that has to leave halfway through the school year, or a coach or anything like that, that can be upsetting, especially if you formed a really close relationship with them. So for our City Year members, we ask that you stay on for the whole year so that the students you're working with have that support from you the whole year. Additionally, like has been said, I haven't heard of any college that did not allow a student to defer to do City Year. So I definitely encourage high school seniors to apply to college as well as City Year if they're exploring that gap year option. And another reason why folks will typically be okay with doing that full year of service with City Year is some of the benefits that you get. So one benefit with City Year is you do earn scholarship money and additional scholarship opportunities. So when you finish your year with us, you earn just over $6,000 in a Siegel Education Award that you can actually use to pay for college. And there are even some colleges that will say, great, you did a year of service and earned $6,000. We will match that $6,000. So then you have like $12,000 of money to pay for school. And then additionally, as an organization, we partner with around 25 or so undergraduate universities that will provide City Year alumni with additional scholarship or tuition aid. So another opportunity to receive some financial support. So Although we can't have as much flexibility, we definitely have some additional support to provide you when it comes to financially setting yourself up for success for school after you serve with us.
So I have one more question to ask, and then I'll open it up to students and families to put more questions in the chat if they have any. Want to talk just a little bit about COVID and how that has impacted gap year programs. Are you seeing application numbers going up for your programs? I know that it's hard to predict, in the future what things will look like, but do you, expect to have, your programs be running in a way that is, they'll still get that hands-on experience if there are restrictions? Just any kind of comments about the impact of COVID on gap year programs would be helpful to know.
Sure, I don't mind going first. We definitely saw an increase in applications last year and filled up much quicker than we normally do and had a wait list a little bit sooner than we normally do. And I think it's just because, the pandemic was still pretty new at that time last year. Students didn't want to start their college experience on Zoom, or they didn't want to have to move in and quarantine and then still have classes on Zoom. And I think, in general, and I'm sure Hillary and Kristen saw it as well, there was a very interest in GAP kind of skyrocketed last year, all across the board for all programs. And Dynamo definitely saw that as well. We were able to run our program successfully in the fall with having 43 students living here in apartments. And of 43 students, I think 41 of them were at in-person internships. We only had 2, maybe 3 students that were either doing a remote or a hybrid internship. Overall, we were able to run successfully. We did the same thing in the spring, about the same numbers. Most internships were in person. As you can imagine, we had to put some new kind of policies and guidelines in place for social distancing and mask wearing, and just to keep the students and the staff as safe as possible. We were able to have our entire staff as well as our students vaccinated back in I think early March. Everyone got their second vaccine. So, things are going really good. I think we're still seeing an uptick in applications. I think it was probably 5 years ago now, GAP saw a big increase in interest because Malia Obama took a gap year.
Dragons.
Yeah. And COVID has definitely made the conversation a lot more popular this year. So we're seeing, another increase for this incoming year. We're not full yet. We do still have spots available in the fall, but we definitely anticipate filling up sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So with City Year, we were able to still have a service year this year that, as I'm sure you guys have experienced at your own school, school took on a lot of different forms this year, whether they were in person or virtual or doing a hybrid. So because of that, each City Year member and each City Year team that works at a school had to adapt to whatever that school was doing. So if that school was doing in person in school, our City Year members were in school alongside students. If that school decided they were doing a hybrid model, our City Year members were working that hybrid model, as well as being all online. So we really worked with our schools that we partner with to kind of meet them where they were at. As far as looking ahead to next year, we are very optimistic, like many educators across the country, that we'll be able to do completely in-person service next year, working with students hands-on. As far as, the popularity of gap year programs, echoing Stephanie, we saw a huge uptick in applications last spring, actually right around this time, and we're definitely starting to see that again. At City Year, we definitely have slots to still fill. So if you're interested, please come on by, hit me up, let's connect. But yeah, I think much like we've all had to learn this year with COVID, it's, I think, about being able to adapt and be resilient during these times. And our core members have definitely done that. And although, you know, connecting with students over video isn't quite the same as connecting with them in person, it was definitely needed. As I'm sure all of you may have felt, like a loss of your community and a loss of belonging, our City Year members were really there to try and help build a sense of community for their students and still have some fun, even if they were doing it over camera. So different experience this past year with COVID, but we're hopeful that the program will be a little bit more back to normal as we head into the fall.
Great. So I'll open it up to students and parents. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and we will answer. So I'll just give you a minute in case you have a question. Right, I'm not seeing any. So I know we covered a lot of information. I guess the last thing I can put out there is there anything else about your program I didn't ask you about that you want to make sure that you share, or in a nutshell, was that pretty, you know, do you feel like you covered everything that you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we all covered the main points. I would say just, you know, and I'm sure Kristen and Hillary will agree, for anybody, I'm actually, Amanda, you're probably going to send contact information out. I would say really just if anybody that's interested at all, just reach out, have a conversation, email us, visit the website, call, anything, you know, just don't be afraid to, you know, reach out, ask lots of questions, because that's what we're here for.
And one thing I will add is that, you know, with COVID, obviously international travel has been highly impacted. We have adapted some of our refund policies to allow for families to like try and plan in an uncertain time. So for summer right now, a majority of a deposit is refundable through May 1st. That line kind of keeps changing with timing. Normally a deposit is only refundable for 21 days after you make it, but knowing that doesn't really work for like the uncertainty around what travel looks like. We made that change a while back, and obviously now May 1st is actually coming up quite soon. But for like fall and spring semesters, it's possible we'll adjust that deadline again. So families who are like excited to travel, not quite sure like they're comfortable with it yet, can put down a deposit and then still have some space to get a majority of that back in the case of a program getting canceled, or they just at the end of the day are like, hey, it's a few weeks out, I'm still not comfortable, just to give some flexibility and like planning, but also having wiggle room to pull out if it doesn't feel like the right fit.
That's great to know. Thank you. So I don't think we have any questions. So just in closing, thank you all so much for attending. I think it's really important to let students and parents know about all the different opportunities out there after high school. You know, for those of you still on listening in, if you want to explore this idea of a gap year more, please reach out to your guidance counselor. We love having these conversations and exploring different options. We can help put you in touch with gap year reps, or just help you kind of navigate different gap year fairs and other programs. So you're definitely not alone if you're feeling like going off to college right after high school is not a good fit for you right away or at all. We want to make sure everyone feels supported in their future planning options. So thank you so much again for attending this panel. We really appreciate it. And have a nice afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.